Alright, everyone. Thank you for coming here today, Izuka said as he sat in an unfamiliar room. This room was the Midoriya Foundation meeting room. A place located in one of the Midoriya Foundation's offices away from his home. He was sitting at a table, with several important people to his foundation. There was Mai, head of his scientific and research branch. A black-haired woman, Kopo Reto, head of his corporate affairs, doing most of the work to keep the business side of the foundation running. Then there was a large burly dark-skinned man, Tochi Ona, who was in charge of overseeing land ownership and maintenance. After that, there was a blue-haired man with closed eyes, Gukoza Kitaboshi, head of public relations, advertising, and government dealings. Lastly, there was a small green goblin-like man, Gobo Line, representing the budgeting division that oversaw the overall budget of the Midoriya Foundation. Now that our negotiations with the other nations over Cronus are drawing to a close, I think it's time we finally made plans for what the company will do in the future, Izuka said, sitting at the head of the long table. Firstly, I'd like to extend the Midoriya Foundation's caretaking of OPCs to become a worldwide thing. That would raise some issues. Most other countries don't have the same kind of policies as Japan. Tochi was brought up. And while we could force some policies on smaller, less powerful countries, more powerful nations will prove problematic, as they often integrate children with powerful quirks into hero training programs. We can take care of that with a combination of propaganda and lobbying, Gukoza said. We hold a massive amount of power, influence, and public trust. Convincing people to do things our way won't be hard. And none of that will leave even a dent in our wallets, Gobo said. Good. Secondly, I'd like to expand our quirk eraser program, Izuku added. Of course, I'd like to be selective, but people with disabilities, due to their quirks, should have the ability to be rid of them if they so please. Isn't that a bit dangerous? Mai asked. If we start making and shipping the formula more, that means some people are inevitably going to steal it. Well, it's not as if their effects can't be cured. And as much as I hate the formula getting out there, I hate the idea of leaving these people to suffer even more. That might be more difficult. I doubt other countries will want to have such things circulating throughout their countries without them being in control of them, Gukoza pointed out. Although perhaps we can convince them if it gives them good publicity. And some bribes. We'll have to be patient if we don't want another worldwide meltdown. Speaking of which, how are things going with de-escalation worldwide? Izuku asked. We've transported several of our new robot masters around the world to assist in minimizing the destruction. We just need to announce their presence and release them, Mai added. Very good. Now, speaking of scientific developments, I finally decided on a way to handle a problem we've been facing for a while now, Izuka said. As you all know, my approach to scientific development is that since you can't stop it, the best way to keep it from hurting anyone is to control it. Everyone nodded. Since we have a monopoly on chaos technology, I've been able to keep its development under control somewhat easily, and keep any dangerous experiments from happening, Izuku told them. However, this will not be the case forever. At some point in the future, people will be able to freely research chaos energy. And there is a good chance they won't have our level of restraint. I've been racking my brain over a solution to this, and I've finally come up with one. Angel Island. Angel Island? Mai repeated, her curiosity piqued. I propose we raise an island out of the ocean, and into the sky, and make it a place where scientists can do all the reckless and dangerous experiments they could ever want, Izuku revealed. Everyone gave him confused/befuddled looks. As if Izuku had just told them the sky was red. Come again? Kopo asked, adjusting her glasses as she and everyone else regained their composure. Well, it's not feasible, Mai said. Using a Chaos Emerald, we could make a large piece of land into the air. Honestly, that's the least iffy part of what you just suggested. Sir, you are aware of the possible dangers of chaos energy, correct? That's why I'm proposing this in the first place. Izuku reiterated. Eventually, people are going to do the more dangerous experiments. And I'd rather have that in a controlled environment, instead of in the middle of a city. If we can find a way to make sure that nothing that happens on that island will affect the outside world, then we can prevent thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands or even millions of casualties. That's true, but what about the people on the island? Mai asked. If something happens, they'd be trapped there. Their deaths would be a certainty. Izuku sighed and shifted uncomfortably. I know that. But the people willing to do these experiments are the people willing to risk their lives for the sake of pursuing new knowledge. And once again, if they don't do these experiments here, they won't guarantee they'll live. It just means they have a chance to get a lot more people killed. Everyone went silent. As crazy as the idea sounded, and as cruel as some of the details seemed, they couldn't deny that Izuku had a point. They had a responsibility as the current controls of chaos tech, to keep chaos energy from causing mass casualties. And this sounded like the best way to do so. Well, budget-wise, we can likely ask for assistance from countries worldwide. I doubt they'd want people ripping holes in reality inside of their own nations, so this might be in their best interest as well. Gobo pointed out. Good. I'm trusting you all to execute this well, Izuku concluded. Now, on to my next project proposal. I want to help out those who've run out of options. Good people who've been hurt by the randomness and cruelty of the world, and have nowhere to go. So you want to start some kind of shelter? Kochi asked. No, too small. Izuku shook his head. I was thinking of a massive underground city. Once again, everyone proceeded to look at him like he was crazy. Sir, you're at 10 right now, we need you at 7, Kochi asked as he rubbed his temples. I have to disagree. With what we're working with, there is no room for thinking small. Izuku told them. We have the ability to help people on a massive scale. And I intend to do so. Now, you said that Achi was making some kind of terraforming thing. Could that help us with what I'm proposing? You mean the planet egg? Mai asked. Yes, please remind me about that again, Izuku asked. Yes sir. The planet egg is orb-shaped plant, with the ability to massively shift the terrain of the area around it. From the flora to the landscape to even the weather. It's also very intelligent and benevolent. Its survival tactic seems to be, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. It changes and maintains the terrain, while we protect and sustain it. However, there is currently an issue with it, in that it requires a massive amount of chaos energy to keep it alive. We have to have several chaos engines hooked up to it just to keep it alive. Would a chaos emerald help with that? Izuku asked. It might? Mai shrugged. Then try it, Izuku told her. And tell me the result. After that, we'll continue this discussion. For now, let's move on. I'd like to start the Midoriya Youth Support Program. First, I'd like to start buying up and opening orphanages around the country. I'd really like to lower the number of kids on the street. I want all these orphanages to be funded and overseen by Midoriya Foundation personnel, and very closely inspected. Education and disciplinary programs will be strict, of course, and no quirk discrimination will be allowed. And quirk counseling will be available, and potentially mandatory depending on the child. Speaking of which, I'd also like to go on an advertising campaign for quirk counseling, and anti-quirkism, and start lobbying for anti-quirkism measures to be taken in schools. We can also use this as a way to out-quirkist. Wonderful. I'll begin work immediately. Gokoza said. Good, good. Now have you drawn up blueprints for the interdimensional space station? Izuku asked. Not yet. Making a station that can stay inside the collective unconscious is difficult due to the massive amounts of chaos energy in there. Mai explained. Do you have any idea what it would cost us? Gobo asked. It'll be expensive, even for us, but not overly so, Mai explained. Although that depends on when I complete the design. By then we might have significantly increased our revenue. Please tell me when you can complete the design, so we can discuss the budget more in depth. Gobo said. Alright. Speaking of budget, are we prepared to launch the Hurricane Fleet? Izuku asked. If we speed up production, the fleet should be finished in just a couple of days, Mai explained. And the second fleet? Izuku asked. Production of that fleet has gone much faster. Mostly due to the fact that the flagship has already been made. And the augmentations to it were far easier than they were to most Grimm. Mai continued. The fleet should be done by tomorrow morning. Perfect. Izuku smiled. That was the more important one anyway. Speaking of importance, update on the Gammas? Nearing completion. Programming and testing are all that's left. Mai explained. They'll be ready for what's to come. Good. One last thing. Izuku said as he stood up. We'll be having a party at the Midoriya Foundation to celebrate Yami's birthday. Lasting for about 3 days. All of you are invited of course. Everyone gave him confused looks. Is this some kind of trap for our enemies? Mai asked. Because it seems kinda obvious. That's the point, Izuku told them. We need to find a way to pinpoint the day of their attack. Since they know they only have 5 days before All Might come back, that helps us tremendously. So the best way to figure out when they'll attack is to figure out when they won't attack. If they think the party is an obvious trap, they'll likely try to attack on days after the party has passed. Which leaves only 2 days in which they'll attack. However, if they attack on the 4th day, that's when my forces will be ready. They'll be walking into the real trap. And if they attack on the 5th? Gobo asked. That'll be the best result, Izuku explained. Because they think All Might will be back in 5 days. But it's actually 4. I've planned for All Might to return on the 4th night in secret and stay over at my house. So if they decide to attack then, our victory is near certain. Oh! Everyone clapped, as they started to understand the genius of Izuku's plan. All except for Gobo. But sir, what if they do attack on the days of the party? That would be the worst case scenario, but not the absolute worst. Several pro heroes should be attending, so we'll have some more forces than normal, Izuku said. But, it would be best if we could discourage them from attacking on those days. I'd like you to have a bit of a lab accident, something flashy and dangerous looking that can be seen from all the way in the city. It'll add to the feeling that the party is the trap. Understood, sir, Mai said, as she was already starting to think of several things she could do. Alright. Then we're done here, Izuku said. Remember everyone. Be safe, and never let your guard down.